Hello, everyone. Professor Kurzlook here. So I just wanted to give another update on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I try to do one of these every few days when big breaking news happens. So over the weekend, Russia carried out the largest strike since the start of the full-scale invasion. Over 800 drones and missiles were fired across Ukraine in a single night. This attack hit infrastructure. Several civilians were killed. It even struck the Ukrainian cabinet building in Kyiv for the very first time. So you've probably seen images if you've been following the news over the weekend, if you saw news over the weekend, of the cabinet building on fire in Kyiv. This strike isn't just about the battlefield damage, although several people were killed. And although the Ukrainian government building was hit, it's also kind of symbolic, the timing of it, and it shows kind of the difficulty and the possible diplomatic failure that is occurring between the US, the rest of the world, and the Russians. But maybe particularly from President Trump himself, who once claimed that the war would be over within 24 hours. Now, we know the end of the war was going to be difficult to find, and this just continues to show that maybe Russia isn't actually willing to look for an end to the conflict. So let's just think for a minute about what actually happened. So on September 7th, Russia unleashed a massive, pretty coordinated assault. Ukrainian officials reported waves of drones, cruise missiles, ballistic weapons hit many cities: Kyiv, Odessa, Zaporizhzhia, Sumy. Air defense systems, Ukrainian air defense systems, intercepted many, but not enough of these projectiles to prevent widespread damage. Like I said at the outset, 4 civilians were killed and at least 40 others were injured. So again, you probably have seen, if you've been following the news, if you even are scrolling through your social media, you probably saw the image of the cabinet of ministers building in Kyiv, which is the administrative heart of Ukraine's government. Flames ripped through the upper floors. Ukrainian Prime Minister called it a historic escalation, proof that Moscow is not interested in de-escalation or peace. So this wasn't, like I said at the outset again, this wasn't just a military operation. It was also a bit of a political message. By hitting the center of the Ukrainian government, of governance, Putin showed the world that he can still dictate the tempo of the war, and he still has at least the ability to show his military strength, his ability to maybe even humiliate his adversaries and kind of push back against the Trump administration. So in a previous video that I made, we talked about how Putin met with Xi, met with other Modi, other leaders, seemingly creating this friendly alliance to push back against the US. And with these strikes, we see that the Russians are showing again the power that they have to dictate the war. And the timing seems to matter. The timing seems to matter here. The strikes came as the Trump administration has been trying to position itself as a peacemaker. We hear talk about Donald Trump winning the Nobel Peace Prize. So Trump really is trying to create a peace. At least that's the words that are coming out of Washington, D.C. The Trump administration wants to seem like a peacemaker. Again, Trump seemingly wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He talks about ending conflicts, talks about ending wars. And the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia-Ukraine war, is another conflict that he wants to solve. He seemingly wants to resolve. And so this shows the power that the Russians still have. We know the Trump administration has been pushing for negotiations. That kind of fell out of the news for the past few days. After the Putin-Trump meeting, there was a ton of discussion online that, oh, it's only a matter of time before Trump and Zelensky and Putin meet. That's kind of fallen by the wayside, and this is the strike. Not only did it cause damage, but it also seemingly shows that Russia still is intent on continuing the conflict. So instead of peace negotiations, Russia responded with firepower, seemingly undermining Washington's narrative before it could even take hold that there's going to be this peace plan. So Trump's promises and Trump's hopes of finding a peace plan are seemingly hitting this harsh reality that an end to this conflict is going to be hard to find. So we all remember that Trump's campaign promise where he was going to end the war in one day, claiming his personal relationship with Putin would deliver results within 24 hours. And so many said, okay, he didn't mean that literally. It's not actually going to be 24 hours. But within a short period of time, Putin, Trump, Zelensky, maybe will come together. We'll find a peace deal. But these continuing strikes seem to show that the Russian administration, the Russian regime, doesn't really have a lot of interest in peace plans. And instead, what we're seeing is when Trump and Putin have a phone call, have a meeting over the phone, the next day Putin comes out and does another large-scale attack. Or when there's discussions about, okay, will this lead to the end of the conflict, we see another large-scale attack. So we're not seeing any movement towards the end of the conflict. Now, the Washington Post I think it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, ran an article today about how maybe the administration is moving closer to putting harder, stricter sanctions on Russia, which we've seen these articles before. We've seen these articles over the past weeks and months about, okay, will this be the time where the West, the U.S., puts stricter sanctions? So we'll see what happens over the next few days and over the next few weeks. We know the U.S.'s European allies have came out, condemned the attack like they oftentimes do, but we'll see if there is an increase in weapons shipments, or if sanctions are increased, or what the retaliation is against Putin and the Russians for continuing to strike inside of Ukraine and seemingly not being interested in a peace plan. So there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. So Russia-Ukraine doesn't really get front and center, front page news like it did maybe a month, 6 months ago. But this war is still going on in the background. And as we saw from the strikes last night, there are still casualties and the war is seemingly escalating. Thank you.